Well, let's move on from normal into something else now. When I started out in photography in the late 1960s, my first serious camera, a Mamiya Secor 35mm film camera, came with a 50mm lens. My next camera, purchased just about a year later after I had literally worn out the Mamiya, was a Nikon FTN, which also came with a 50mm lens. The 50mm is still what most photographers consider the normal lens for a full-frame sensor, and of course for 35mm film, but it was literally the normal lens you would find on most new cameras back in the day. My first three lens purchases after the 50 were a 135mm telephoto, a 28mm wide angle, and a 20mm wide angle. Soon after, I added a few more telephoto lenses, a 105 and a 200mm, and I thought I was set for life. The choices of lenses back in the day, as it is called now, for anyone who was a serious photographer, did not generally include zoom lenses. The main reasons were tradition, in that younger photographers generally followed the route of their elders, something that rarely happens today, and that's a good thing actually. And the fact that zoom lenses had a reputation which was well earned for poor focus and for being limited by not having very wide aperture settings. They were also generally more expensive, and in the heydays of film, the most commonly available fast film was rated at 400 speed. A lens with a wide aperture to allow more light into the camera and thus faster shutter speeds was a major consideration. As lens manufacturing technologies have progressed along with everything else in life, and as digital cameras today often provide ISO settings in the thousands, the attractions of zoom lenses are harder to resist. I regularly carry a 16 to 35mm and a 24 to 105mm lens in my bag, along with two cameras. One camera has a full-frame sensor and the other an APS-C sensor. When I add my 100 to 400mm lens, which effectively becomes a 160 to 640mm lens on the APS-C camera, I'm ready for just about any situation. I use the APS-C sensor camera to boost the effective focal length of my longest zoom lens. With that ability to transform a lens into a longer focal length, I can be ready to make pictures like a true bird watcher if I want to. Zoom lenses provide opportunities not only for quickly responding to a changing situation by zooming in or zooming out on the scene, they can also be used to create uniquely blurred images. Here's a photograph of a set of figurines in a cabinet with some wine glasses made with a 24 to 105mm zoom lens. It's a picture made from about 1 meter, 3 feet, from the objects using the 24mm focal length setting, and this is on a full-frame sensor camera. The ISO was set at 25, which is a very low sensitivity level. That is 4 times less sensitive to light than the normal lowest, which on my camera is ISO 100. Setting such a low ISO allowed me to use a very small aperture, f/22, and a very long shutter speed of 12 seconds under the low intensity indoor lighting. The items in this still picture are quite sharp, but the picture is quite unorganized. The left side has a figurine chopped in half by the sensor. There's a deep shadow band along the top, and the main figures are getting lost in the glassware. In this photograph, I've zoomed in, now using the 105mm focal length of the lens. In this picture, you see the results of shooting at exactly the same exposure time, 12 seconds, but instead of using just one focal length for the picture, I took advantage of the zoom capabilities of the lens to use all of them, starting the exposure at the 105 millimeter length and gradually zooming out to 24 millimeters. In this first test exposure, I didn't move the zoom element for about 5 seconds, then moved through the focal lengths. While I liked the first result, I felt that the figurines just did not have enough presence. In this next exposure, I waited until the 7-second mark before gradually turning the zoom ring on the lens, moving it from one focal length to the other to the 24 millimeter mark in about 5 seconds. With a longer exposure at the longest focal length, where the figurines' images were larger on the sensor, their tones and colors were more firmly set in the image. And I like this balance of still and moving images better. There were any number of other options I could have tried in this setting, but I decided to move on to a different approach. Here, instead of only zooming in and out, I also loosened the rotating collar on the tripod so I could swing the camera lens to the left and the right while zooming back and forth between long and short focal lengths. In this picture, there's a distinct horizontal line pattern created from the left to right movement. There's also a mistiness to the picture resulting from the zoom from a larger image to a smaller one, from 105 millimeters to 24. Here's another variation, this time swinging the lens further to the left to record brighter reflections from the wine glasses on that side of the cabinet. I also started to move the camera earlier in the 12-second exposure time to create less emphasis on the presence of the figurines and more emphasis on that dreamy feeling. You may be wondering by now why anyone would bother to purchase a fixed focal length lens when zoom lenses offer so many options. Well, let's take a look at a few good reasons. First, and maybe most importantly, no matter what focal length lens it is, using a fixed focal length lens day after day will tune you in to its angle of view, its way of forming perspective, its distortions, or its normal look. When I visited Athens, Greece a few years ago, I took a 50 millimeter fixed focal length lens along to challenge myself to do just that, return to my roots in a way in photography. By becoming creatively focused, literally and also metaphorically, on a singular way to view the world through a singular fixed focal length lens, at least for a period of time, I think we can all become better photographers. There, I said it. Yes, I'm old school, but don't tell me I'm old. I really believe that all of my introductory level students would be better off if they used a fixed focal length lens for a period of time. If you do, you'll find yourself moving around a lot more, rather than just zooming in or out. You'll become more attuned to the physical space you're in, and probably discover other unique vantage points, framings, and other aspects related to the content that you would not have if you simply stood in one place and zoomed. Second, an advantage of the fixed focal length lens is that it will be a much less expensive choice for getting a very wide aperture, and if that's high on your list of priorities, that's something to consider. On a zoom lens, one of the things that is sacrificed when a manufacturer has to put lots of pieces of glass together in such a configuration that the lens can actually zoom, well, one of the things that's sacrificed is that maximum aperture. Most zoom lenses in the under $1,000 price range have a maximum aperture of about f4. If you're a photographer who favors areas of distinct focus and distinct out of focus, in other words, you like very shallow depth of field, there's no such thing as a lens with too wide an aperture. And f1.4 is a lot wider than f4. A lens with a maximum aperture wider than f4 is also very handy when you're interested in using faster shutter speeds. As you know, the wider the aperture, the more light will pass through it, and the faster the shutter speed that is possible in any given situation. Finally, a prime lens, as standard focal length lenses are often called, is a much less complicated device, using fewer pieces of glass to achieve its results compared to a zoom lens. For this reason, at any given focal length, such a lens will generally be noticeably sharper than a zoom lens at the same focal length. Whether your next lens purchase is a zoom or a fixed focal length lens, I hope you now feel better ready to make your selection based on real understanding of the differences.